My favourite book in the whole wide world? Well, I have to say that's a little bit difficult. But if I was pushed, if I was cornered, I'd have to pick out I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Why? Because it's sensitive, it just embraces you, it's got all the warmth, the humour, even in the face of appalling discrimination, it's all there. It's amazingly appealing, and it stays close to my heart. So, why not curl up with a book on World Book Day?
Where is he? Where is he? Have you got him?
Evening, officer.
I'm up for it, me. I am really up for it.
But you can never stop me.
He's just picked up a girl. Stop it!
Stay on the edge of your seat for an incredible new season of drama on ITV.
Mario Puzo's The Last Don provides the drama for Saturday evening here on Central at 9.
I don't know about you, but my life just got a whole lot fuller.
L'Oreal introduces new Elvive 2-in-1. It contains ceramide R, which strengthens the hair from within.
For stronger, thicker, fuller hair.
New L'Oreal Elvive 2-in-1.
Go on, wash the strength back in.
Now on special offer at Boots.
Lurpak Spreadable. Smoother by half.
Right then, come on, boy, come on, come on. Your Jamaican chicken.
Hello, William.
Will you feed him for me?
Okey-dokey. William.
Pal is packed with delicious chunks in vitamin-enriched jelly. Did you feed him? Come on, William. I'll do it. Pal, because it's hard work being a family dog.
For a fragrance that lasts, don't spray it, touch and fresh it. Glade's Touch and Fresh Fine Mist stays up for up to 4 hours, while ordinary aerosols come down in minutes. Fragrance that lasts for hours. Touch and Fresh, created by nature, captured by Glade.
We out the incredibly rich. Don't miss The Rich List. The Sunday Times is the Sunday papers.
Every day I'm investing in my future, the future of my skin.
L'Oreal Plenitude Future E, the new moisturizing fluid with pure vitamin E.
My skin looks smoother in 1 day and seems younger in just 1 week.
New L'Oreal Plenitude Future E, pure vitamin E for the future of your skin.
L'Oreal, because I'm worth it today and tomorrow.
You're with Central ITV. It's time for the news at 10.
ITN News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Clinton sex accusers' dramatic vow to fight on. Cambodia's Pol Pot, the body confirming he's dead. Chelsea battle through to a European final. And the Spice Girls keep their date for a princely tea. Good evening. Paula Jones's sexual harassment claim against President Bill Clinton could get to court after all. She broke a long silence tonight to announce that she will appeal against an Arkansas judge's dismissal of her case. Mrs. Jones, always close to tears tonight, told the news conference she still believed that what Mr. Clinton did to her back in 1991 was wrong and an abuse of power. Our Washington correspondent James Mates reports.
For 2 weeks, she has pondered her options. Many thought that after a court had summarily thrown out her case against the president, she would give up and return to obscurity. But on the advice of lawyers and of the right-wing institute backing her, Paula Jones is doing quite the opposite.
I'd like to introduce you to one of the most courageous women in this country, Paula Corbin Jones.
As you know, 2 weeks ago, the court in Little Rock surprisingly dismissed my case. I was shocked.
On the brink of tears, it was some moments before, with the support of her husband, she was able to continue.
Despite the continuing personal strain on my family and me, in the end, I have not come this far to see the law let men who have done such things dodge their responsibility. They should not be able to abuse their positions of power at the expense of female employees. Therefore, I have decided to appeal the court's decision.
The appeal could take up to a year, and even if she won, the president could appeal again to the Supreme Court. Jones's lawyers hope they can get the case before a jury while President Clinton is still in the White House, but they insist that's not the point.
We frankly don't care whether he is president of the United States or bussing tables at Luby's cafeteria when this lawsuit comes to trial. The legal issues are still the same.
The president heard the news on a state visit to the Chilean capital, Santiago. He and his lawyers are confident they'll win any appeal, but he will be depressed at the prospect of this scandal dogging him right to the end of his term of office. Added to that, Special Prosecutor Kenneth Starr said today he'd finally turned down a job at a California university. His reason? He's not nearly finished with his investigation yet.
The work of that office, however, has expanded considerably, and the end is not yet in sight.
The president has been desperately trying to focus public attention back onto his policies, to use his second term to build a legacy and a place in history. He'd hoped by early summer to have the court cases and investigations finally behind him. That, it appears, is not to be. James Mates, News at 10, Washington.
The Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble began his battle today for the peace agreement he signed up to last week. He called it as good and as fair as it got and said there was no alternative. The agreement goes to a referendum next month. Mr. Trimble said today a no vote would hand victory to the IRA. Reporting from Stormont, here's ITN's John Irvine.
The first opinion poll carried out since the agreement was reached here at Stormont last week shows that more than 70% of people approve of the deal. That said, the referendum is more than a month away, and a yes vote then is far from guaranteed. Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble signed up to the agreement, but he now needs his party's full backing for what he did. And despite some dissension, he says he's certain his colleagues will not desert him now.
They know that there is no alternative, and they're going to consequently endorse, I'm quite confident of this, endorse the actions of the leadership of the party.
Mr. Trimble's fellow unionist Ian Paisley is out to wreck the agreement, and that puts the two leaders on a collision course.
Dr. Paisley, I'm afraid to say, has been at loggerheads with me from the outset over everything. And then, if you want to see what the effect of all this is, look at today's opinion polls and who's up and who's down. I think there's a very clear message, Mark.
Issues like the future of the RUC make unionists nervous, for they are sensitive about how the force will be treated. The Prime Minister has sought to reassure them.
There is no question of disbanding the RUC and replacing it with ad hoc groups of the former paramilitaries and all the rest of the scare stories put about by some of the opponents of the deal.
In West Belfast today, Mo Mowlam inspected the site for a new cross-community college. Among those with her were leading Republican Gerry Adams and leading Loyalist Billy Hutchinson. It's a get-together unthinkable just a short time ago. The government desperately hopes that there will be a yes vote at the referendum, and in an effort to sell the agreement to the people, it is sending out a copy to every household in Northern Ireland, starting tomorrow. John Irvine, News at 10, Stormont.
One of the most hated figures of the century, Pol Pot, does seem to be dead at last. He apparently died of heart failure with the Khmer Rouge guerrillas he once led. Pol Pot ranked with Hitler and Stalin in the enormity of his crimes. He was responsible for the deaths of up to 2 million of his fellow Cambodians in the late 1970s. Our senior foreign correspondent Michael Nicholson reports.
Not since Hitler's has one man's death been so welcomed. After months of rumour, these pictures from Cambodia today appear to confirm the end of one of the world's bloodiest ever tyrants. Born Saloth Sa 73 years ago, his revolutionary army, the Khmer Rouge, began its war on the American-backed Lon Nol regime in 1968. But when the war in neighbouring Vietnam ended and the Americans finally went home, Pol Pot's victory was assured. When they marched into Phnom Penh, no one could possibly have guessed what was in store. He renamed the country Kampuchea and began the most radical experiment in social engineering seen anywhere this century. It was called Year Zero. He ordered the evacuations of all towns and cities. In Year Zero, everyone would live and work on the land. Hundreds of thousands were sent to forced labor camps. Those who would not or could not were tortured and slaughtered. Hundreds of thousands more died from exhaustion or starvation. The country became littered with bleached bones and mass graves. It became known worldwide as the killing fields.
Pol Pot banned books, cars, education, marriage, anything that was to do with civilization as he saw it. His object was to erase civilization in Cambodia, take it back to Year Zero.
Pol Pot's 4-year regime ended in 1979 when the Vietnamese did what the international community was not prepared to do. They invaded, and the world condemned them for it. But for the survivors of Year Zero, it was liberation. They fled the camps and returned to what was left of their homes. The Vietnamese pushed the Khmer Rouge into the jungles on the border with Thailand, and there Pol Pot remained, and with Chinese help, continued his guerrilla war against the new democratic government in Phnom Penh. But his war was lost, and so too was his authority. His army gradually disowned him. Last October, they put him on show at what they called a trial. But in his last and only television interview, he showed no remorse, no grief. An old man, broken, but in the fashion of all dictators, to the last, unrepentant. Michael Nicholson, News at 10.
Miriam Hamza, the child brought out of Iraq by the Labour MP George Galloway, went to hospital in Glasgow today for treatment for her leukemia. Well-wishers have given toys and money, but the controversy over Mr. Galloway's role continued today. Colin Baker is following the case.
All she and her family want is to beat the dreaded illness that threatens her life. But Mariam Hamza's arrival in Glasgow for hospital treatment for leukemia came amid accusations that the MP who brought her out of Baghdad was exploiting the 4-year-old for his own political needs.
No, this is my, well, I'm trying to save the child's life. She would otherwise die.
Labour MP George Galloway has angrily denied he's being used by the Iraqi regime. He says Mariam is just one of thousands of children whose lives are threatened by UN sanctions, which he opposes.
Sanctions preclude the kind of equipment, the kind of drugs, in the right combinations that this child needs. If the drugs and equipment could have been taken to Iraq, then there would have been no need for the child to come here.
Mariam, who's travelled with her grandmother, weighs only 20 pounds. She was diagnosed with leukemia 10 months ago. Doctors at York Hill Hospital say she'll have tests over the next week. George Galloway freely admits that without a sick child to show off, his campaign against sanctions on Iraq would falter for lack of publicity. It is all of little consequence to Mariam. Tonight she's here in hospital, protected from high-profile public displays. All that concerns her doctor and her family is her well-being. Colin Baker, News at 10, Glasgow.
So, to what extent are UN sanctions against Iraq responsible for the plight of Mariam Hamza and children like her? Or is President Saddam Hussein manipulating sanctions for his own political purposes, deliberately making things worse for his own people? Our Middle East correspondent Julian Mannion has this report.
There's no doubt that it is the children of Iraq who are still paying the price for their country's invasion of Kuwait and Saddam Hussein's intransigence. United Nations experts say that almost a quarter of Iraqi children under 5 are suffering from the effects of malnutrition. Those effects include stunted growth and vulnerability to disease, made worse by an acute shortage of medicines. Imports of food and medicine are not banned under United Nations sanctions, but sanctions have inflicted enormous damage on the country's economy, leaving Iraq desperately short of foreign currency to purchase supplies abroad. Under the UN's Oil for Food program, Iraq is allowed to sell limited quantities of oil to buy humanitarian supplies, but it's generally agreed that the amount it's brought in is insufficient. Britain and the United States point to the millions that Saddam Hussein continues to spend on his palaces and government buildings as money that could be better spent on the welfare of his population. They say that the Iraqi leader is responsible for the sufferings of his people.
Saddam Hussein could have the sanctions lifted tomorrow. He could have had them lifted any time over the last 7 years. All it needs is compliance with the United Nations Security Council resolutions.
The Iraqi government has now made it clear that it is ready to provoke a new confrontation in its bid to break out of UN sanctions. It's called on the UN Security Council to begin the process of lifting sanctions by the end of this month, and warns that anyone who opposes this will bear responsibility for a future crisis. It's a statement that will set alarm bells ringing in London and Washington. Julian Mannion, News at 10 in the Middle East.
Stay with us tonight for more of the day's news, including why this professor's new book on Diana has enraged charities and politicians. Is it a strip too far? Manchester United unveiled their 13th kit in 5 years. And fans flock to Highgrove as the famous five have tea with the princes.
Stop right now, thank you very much. I need somebody with a human purse.
The House of Fraser Spring Sale starts this Saturday.
Save £1 when you get any colour print films, including advanced photo system, developed at Boots.
Every day, our people are out there watching. Every day, all over Britain, they're watching over 13,000 of our competitors' fuel prices, checking them, and reporting them to the Esso Price Watch Centre, where we adjust our own prices to usually be among the lowest in your neighbourhood. That's why, all over Britain, more motorists have chosen to fill up with quality fuel at Esso. Esso Price Watch. We keep watching, so you keep saving.
From the first moment, you want the best for your family. The right support, the right guidance. You don't want your family to struggle. You want them to fly. And when it's time for the next generation, we'll be there. Britannic Assurance, partnership for life.
Ever dream you were king of the jungle? From April the 5th, come and monkey around in the new wonderful world of Disney Parade. Disneyland Paris. The magic is closer than you think. Don't miss the new parade. Call 0990 03 03 01 and ask for your free brochure.
Why bite documents? With ISDN, the information could flow between computers in seconds. Why wait and wait to download from the internet? With ISDN, you could access data much faster. Every week, BT install over 2,000 ISDN lines. Right now, our startup package offers connection for the special price of only £99. Why not change the way we work? Why not call BT now on free phone 0800 800 800?
A black hole is where a star's gravity is so powerful nothing can escape.
It's the same principle with the new Hoover Telius. Its sealed suction system has the filtration power you need to keep more than 99.9% of dust particles locked in. Even particles as small as a grain of pollen. Rely on Hoover to do the homework.
The professor of philosophy does something hitherto unheard of in a book published tomorrow. He finds fault with Princess Diana. Professor Anthony O'Hare accuses the princess of a childlike self-centeredness and says the notion of duty is entirely absent from her story. Our media and arts correspondent Katie Derham reports.
The image of Diana as the caring princess who worked incessantly for charities and who, by her good works and her very public emotional struggles, won the hearts of the British people, has rarely been challenged. But in Faking It, a new book about modern Britain from right-wing think tank The Social Affairs Unit, she's described in one chapter by the author Professor O'Hare as self-obsessed and denounced as a symbol of an overly sentimental Britain.
She elevated feeling above reason, expression above discipline, self-esteem above objective duty, and she seemed to express this idea of herself as a victim rather than as somebody responsible for what she was and what she'd become.
His comments have been harshly criticised by Diana's friends and supporters.
Well, I think it's an unbalanced account by someone who clearly never knew her. She was childlike in the sense that she responded freely and sympathetically and openly to anyone who met her.
Here at the headquarters of the Social Affairs Unit, one thing is clear. Less than a year after Diana's death, public opinion dictates that even within academic circles, it's far too soon to be criticising Diana's actions or to be discussing exactly what effect they may have had on society. Katie Derham, News at 10 in central London.
Manchester United today showed off something guaranteed to keep the money rolling in to the richest club in the land. It was their new first-team strip and is their 13th in only 5 years. Fans, or their parents, will be asked to pay at least £35 for the replicas when they go on sale later this month. Our Consumer Affairs correspondent Caroline Kerr has this report.
This afternoon, to a disco beat, some of Manchester United's top players modelled the club's latest strip. Its zip-topped front, we were told, is the height of fashion, and the fabric, it was boasted, has been specially designed to maximise player comfort. For the club, it's a certain money spinner, because no self-respecting fan will want to be without it. The tills at Old Trafford already rake in huge profits. For parents, another new strip seems simple exploitation.
For people with children who want to keep up to date, it's quite an expensive thing.
I think it's a bit ridiculous, you know, the prices of them as well, and not many kits coming out and the children want them all the time. You just can't afford it.
Manchester United leads the field in terms of financial success. It's now the richest club in the Premiership. Its last annual profits were around £27.5 million, with a turnover of almost £90 million, double that of Newcastle United. The club's money comes from ticket sales, which raised £30 million, TV fees of almost £12.5 million, sponsorship and advertising of £11 million, and sales from souvenirs and shirts, which net almost £30 million. United launched its first strip in the 1960s, when it cost just a couple of pounds. Today's new strip is the club's 13th in 5 years. It'll cost around £45 for adults and £35 for children. If supporters had bought all 13 strips over the last 5 years, they'd have paid out